time for the news on QTV. Former Finance Minister Katela Kalumba has advised the Patriotic Front PF to continue pursuing austerity measures, whether or not this may affect its stay in government. United Church of Zambia UCZ Synod as Bishop Sinis Chilima has advised politicians against dividing the country on tribal lines. Welcome to the news. Former Finance Minister Katela Kalumba has advised the Patriotic Front PF to continue pursuing austerity measures, whether or not this may affect its stay in government. Dr. Kalumba is opposed to government making quick fixes to the economy for the sake of getting a vote in 2021. In an interview with Q News, Dr. Kalumba has implored government to make decisions that are fundamentally correct economically. Dr. Kalumba, who served as cabinet minister under the Frederick Chilua MMT government, is convinced that the austerity measures the government is putting in place are correct. He states that the measures are necessary for stabilizing the Zambian economy and for building investor confidence. The former finance minister has since urged the government to follow through the austerity measures it is implementing. He has reminded the Patriotic Front PF government that the measures are in fact about the Zambian economy.
The measures they have put in place, austerity measures are put in place, and they're still put in place, are correct. They are necessary in terms of stabilizing the economy, in terms of building investor confidence. They're necessary in terms of getting the support we need to get our IMF package, which is necessary to pump in extra capital. So they have to follow through those measures, and regardless of the idea of whether or not that will mean they'll be voted in or voted out. It's about Zambian economy. It's not about a political party chances. It's about Zambia's economy surviving and doing well.
The Zambian government has been advised to realize the key to broadening the country's tax base still lies in ensuring that the mining industry pays the correct tax. Head of policy of UK-based Jubilee Debt Campaign, Tim Jones, says government should ensure that there is no tax avoidance and evasion in the mining industry. Mr. Jones has told QTV News that government can equally try to see how it gets more money in terms of tax from multinationals in the country. He, however, notes that besides increasing the tax base, there is also need to ensure loopholes in tax administration are sealed.
On the flip side of the government revenue is what the government is spending on debt payments. And at the moment there is a lot of high interest debt to the private sector, and actually financial markets in places like London buying that debt at 60 cents on the dollar, 60% of the value. So that means they're expecting some kind of restructuring or debt default. If the debt is paid in full, then those speculators will be earning returns of over 20% a year, which in my view is outrageous that they could be making that much money out of Zambia.
The government has been advised not to forgo its plans of pursuing a financial bailout with the International Monetary Fund, IMF. Center for Trade Policy and Development, CTPD Tax Justice Program Officer Ibrahim Kamara says an IMF bailout can resolve some of Zambia's liquidity challenges. Mr. Kamara states that for the fact that it is a member of the IMF, Zambia is entitled to an IMF bailout. He says that this is especially if Zambia is facing liquidity problems.
And also, we can turn to the IMF. I think in terms of liquidity challenges, the IMF can provide that support for Zambia. Of course, Zambia is a member of IMF, and Zambia is entitled to a bailout package from the IMF if Zambia is facing liquidity challenges. So we need to go back to the table and discuss with the IMF and restructure certain things which are requested by the IMF so that we can begin to move towards the attainment of that IMF bailout package.
Government says it has resumed the construction of provincial fuel depots across the country. Minister of Energy Matthew Nkoa says government is funding the construction of 2 depots at a time. Mr. Nkoa has told QTV News that this, however, depends on the size of the depot. He says that besides the Lusaka new fuel depot, government is thus constructing another one in Choma.
Yes, well, right now we've got one in Wapula, we've got one in Nome, and we've got one which is constructing in Chipata. one will be in Southern. So far,
Still in the news, United Church of Zambia UCZ Synod Bishop Sidney Chilima has advised politicians against dividing the country on tribal lines. Bishop Chilima says that tribalism must not be allowed to take center stage in the nation as it is detrimental and divisive. He has urged the political leaders to avoid dwelling on matters that derail development, but instead engage in issue-based discussions that are beneficial to every Zambian citizen. Bishop Chilima has further called on Zambians to uphold the spirit of oneness and peace. He said this in an interview with journalists during the UCZ Northern Province Conference held in Senga District. And Bishop Chilima has urged all well-meaning Zambians and leaders at various levels to campaign Christian values. He says that those in leadership positions must endeavor to uphold integrity as they discharge their respective responsibilities. Government has described as disappointing the vandalizing of the unfinished buildings of the Solwezi Provincial Studio. Information and Broadcasting Services Permanent Secretary Chanda Kasolo says it is shocking that vandals went to the extent of uprooting the site office of the studio. Mr. Kasolo says all what has remained now is a slab of what should have been the provincial office. He has told QTV News that a new place for the Solwezi Provincial Office has, however, been found.
I just don't know what sort of people do that. But anyway, it had been done. And there's just a slab lying there for the main studio and the slab for the site office. A very sad situation. So I proceeded immediately. I asked for permission from Secretary Cabinet so that I could travel back to Solwezi with an engineer from the contractor, Star Times, as well as my director planning. So we traveled there and engaged the local council because where they had allocated the original site is actually about 13 kilometers from the CBD, the Central Business District of Solwezi. It was actually in the bush, and I think that's why the vandalism occurred without being detected. So we asked for a new piece of land, which they have actually allocated. We're trying to formalize, which is somewhere near the CBD, so that people can walk to the studio, people can go there easily and access it. Where they originally gave us, I think it would have been very difficult for people to access if they didn't have means of transport.
Still in our news, the government has praised the chieftainess Nawaitwika of the Namwanga-speaking people in Nakonde, Muchinga province for giving 300 hectares of land to Zafiko. Provincial Permanent Secretary Joyce Ansamba made the praise in a speech read on her behalf by Assistant Secretary Sam Matika Mbewe. This is when she officiated at this year's Mutolomo ceremony of the Namwanga people in Nakonde. And Ms. Nsamba says government is gratified that Chieftainess Nawaitwika gave 300 hectares of land to Zafiko to plant trees as a climate change mitigation measure. She has observed that the traditional leader has been a champion in many ways in her chiefdom. Ms. Nsamba cited the fight against malaria, gender-based violence, GBV, and the fight against early marriages. And finally, in our news, Pantera, the Global Wildcat Conservation Organization, has handed over 400 synthetic leopard and other wildcat skins to the Barotse Royal Establishment, BRE, in Western Province to stop the declining wildcat population. In a statement issued in New York, Pantera Global Public Relations Manager Susie Wheeler said the organization, in partnership with Peace Parks Foundation and Akatia, launched the Saving Sport project to protect a cat population. Ms. Wheeler said the use of synthetic leopard, sable, and lion furs, known as heritage furs, had been welcomed and embraced in the province by the traditional leadership. She said the traditional leadership has been instrumental in adopting the heritage furs with endorsement and design input from His Majesty, the Litunga Lubosi Imwiko II, and the senior chief. The public relations manager said it was observed that the Komboka traditional ceremony of the Lozi-speaking people uses almost 1,000 leopard and several furs on the king's barge. She noted that the 200 paddlers of the king's barge adorn themselves with ornate skins known as lipatelo, made of nearly 1,000 leopard and several furs, and wear red berets topped with lion men headpieces called mishukwe. She disclosed that Pantera scientists estimated that nearly 200 paddlers were addressed in furs from around 150 leopards and 800 servals at the 2018 Kuomboka ceremony. That ends the news.